Thank you, David. Can you all hear me okay? It's a real privilege to be here at the Anthony Burgess Centre, to be reading here, and it's wonderful to have the live music as well. So I'm going to be reading from my most recent, my first collection, the Hawthorn Bride. And this collection started life on a poetry school masterclass on writing about trees. For several weeks we got obsessed with writing about trees, and I came away with a sequence of poems about the Celtic ogham trees, and we were writing a poem for each tree, and it became the basis for this collection. There's obviously lots of things in the collection as well. I am a scientist, so I am coming at it from a scientific angle, but I got really interested in the folklore about the trees, also their magical and medicinal properties. So hopefully it is stepping away from just the science. And I'm going to start with my first poem in the collection, which is about the hawthorn, and it seemed a good time of year to talk about hawthorn because the hawthorn's known as the May tree. We're almost in May, and although the hawthorns aren't quite blossoming, at least they're not in Halifax, I think the blossoming will soon come. The Hawthorn Bride. She's restless and beltane wild, veil torn by its circlet of spines. Who'd have thought a blossoming could carry so much weight, trail all this slithering light? Imagine what it would be to cup her heart, a yellow hammer in a grotto of thorns. Savour her scent of musk and decay, a foretaste of what's to come, the twisted arms of a crone to hold you through winter's ice. Don't tell me you wouldn't bleed for her rioting petals, this cluster of stars offered up beneath a waxing moon. And my next poem is another spiky tree, the blackthorn. The mythology around the blackthorn is quite interesting because it's very sort of dark and witchy. And it's thought that maybe the forest of thorns that sprung up around the Sleeping Beauty were blackthorns. And it made me think of when I was young, my mum had the old ladybird books of fairy tales, and I used to read them. So I decided I was going to write the blackthorn poem as a bit of a dark, coming-of-age fairy tale, and I didn't want there to be a prince in it, so it's a bit different from the usual fairy tale. I always knew I was a blackthorn, not like the other girls, those golden beeches tripping me up in the shallows of their roots. Nothing could grow in their shade. But in the secret thicket of my ribs, I had my knives out, scoring through stories of my childhood, those easy reading ladybird books, where princes lay waste to forests to rouse her with a delicate kiss. I was the rod with the barb at its end, the witch who trapped winter in her bones. My cold petal blossoming lit the frayed edges of solitary lanes. And after the first frosts, a quickening in the hedgerows. Something bitter grew ripe in the dark, a silver blue bloom of fruit so close to the thorns. And oh, that first time there was no prince, just a beach girl bringing me her gold, her finger on the spindle of my heart, slow juice and blood on her lips. So I'm going to do just one more tree poem, and that's the alder tree. And when my daughter was in primary school, occasionally I got a chance to walk her to school. I work full time, but when I walked her, I used to walk back along the river, and there was a row of alder trees, and it came to symbolise that time. Waking alder. The quiet ache of these hours, the children at school, and a rush of blue notes from the alder flute calling you back to the river. Here along the cones of last year's fruit, a tremble of catkins, the purplish length of the male the female's delicate scales. When cut, the alder bleeds as we bleed. But reach out and trace this deep spiralling of buds. Let the alder shore up your banks and breathe a little life into the waterlogged dreams at your roots. And apparently it's true, I don't know whether, I've never cut an alder tree, because I wouldn't want to cut a tree, but apparently they do bleed red. Apparently their sap is red. So when I was writing this book, I decided I was going to go forest bathing, and obviously this is something we associate more with Japan, Shinrin-yoku, and that there is a scientific basis for forest bathing, but also there's a lady who lives up in Hebden Bridge who takes you forest bathing for the day, and I went with a couple of friends, and I think we were possibly a little bit cynical. But by the end of the day, just taking that time to really be in the presence of the trees, and we drank a lot of fresh nettle tea and shared a lot of secrets, and I think it was a really memorable thing to do. Forest bathing in Nucliff Woods. Under this shifting canopy of oak, birch, sycamore, beech, a circle of women, fidgety, heads bent to the dapple weight of late spring, and straining to tune in to root noise, the hiss of xylem and phloem. Steady and deep, we'll keep inhaling phytoncides, as if somewhere beyond bark and cambion, the furred rot of heartwood, there's a pulse of green, a dryad in each of us fluorescing. So, walking's a really important part of my writing process. I quite often edit in my head when I walk. But my constant companion is my dog. He's called Obi-Wan Kenobi, because my son was going through a phase of liking Star Wars at the time we got him. And he inspired a few of the poems in this book, and like all dogs, he goes back and rolls in things that he shouldn't roll in. And this inspired this poem. My dog takes me back to dead things. When he doesn't respond to my call, I leave the path and push bracken aside to find him rolling on badger pelts. Soft bristle, the cub, not long emerged from the set and now curled around its own death. Morning bands masking the eyes and tiny claws like new moons. And he brings me back to them all, the savage, the roadkill, the starved, an instinct that lurks like a wolf beneath the base pairs of his DNA. He must ride out this obsession until his coat crawls with decay, rank stain of fox, wool scraps nudged from the carcass of a sheep. And once there was a starling, half decomposed on the edge of the road, and I would have walked past unseeing. But he, addict that he is, knows deep, nuzzling dark matter, and I came to kneel on the verge, his lead in my hands. In the spread of that broken bird, a riot of shattered golds. It was all I could do to hold him off, and neither of us were able to rub the stars out of its wings. So have I done my 10 minutes just about? I'm going to do one more to finish. So I do have a degree in zoology and biochemistry, it's hard because I am really interested in animals, and in particular strange animals that do strange things or survive in strange ways. And this is what I'm going to end on, looking at the Alaskan wood frog. And these frogs, to survive the coldest of winters, they turn their blood into antifreeze by making it really syrupy. And it means they can survive, and they can literally stop their own hearts and be brittle enough to snap. And then when the spring comes, they piss it all out, basically. They wee out all of this antifreeze, and they croak and they live. And it made me think about, maybe there's a metaphor there for life. Sometimes we maybe put ourselves in the deep freeze, sometimes we maybe need to. But there is hope at the heart of this poem that however cold things get, hopefully we're all going to survive. So thank you for being an amazing, I'm so happy to read here, and I'll end on this poem. For the Alaskan wood frog. Because you showed me how cold can be welcomed into the body like a lover. Because your bed is a deep winter rustle of leaf litter. Because you told me, slow, slow like the language of the frozen. Because you thinned yourself to glass, heart quivering on pause. Because your brain is a slush puppy and your legs are brittle enough to snap. Because you will not snap. Because your veins are steeped in antifreeze. And because you suspend hope as ice crystals between the walls of blood cells. And because you never stop believing in beetles and birdsong, the fat glisten of peatbog slugs. And because one day you'll piss out rivers of glucose and the forest will spring open as you belt out the old songs in a pond that throbs with stars, because it's the only way to live. Thank you.